Hey everybody, Don Georgievich here with Job Interview Tools, and today I've got something for you a little bit different. I want to give you 10 success predicting interview questions. Now these are questions that an employer will ask you if they're smart. You see, not all employers know the reasons behind asking you certain questions. They just like to ask questions and think they know what it means. Well, certain employers, certain smart employers know how to ask questions that are essentially predictive of success, meaning that they know how to gauge your response and determine whether you're likely to be successful in this role or you're not likely to be successful. So pay close attention to each one of these questions, because if you hear it asked exactly the way that I'm framing it in this video here, you can know that that interviewer is asking you specialized questions and they're looking for specific responses. And what I'm going to do, I'm not going to tell you exactly what to say, but I'm going to kind of show you what to look out for and maybe how to frame your responses so that you're framing them in the way that they're looking for. One of the biggest mistakes that certain interviewers make is they like to ask brain teaser questions like why are manhole covers round, or how many birdhouses are there in San Francisco. If you get an interviewer asking you questions like that, I can tell you right now, they don't know what they're doing. And now you know that they don't know what they're doing, because those questions, they came out of Google many years ago. Google used to use questions like that to determine whether or predict whether someone is likely to be successful in the role or not. But they found out through extensive testing that those questions have nothing to do with whether a candidate is going to be successful in the role. So if you get somebody asking you a question like that, they just don't know what they're doing. Don't tell them that, but just keep that our secret. I mean, the whole point of predictive questioning is for the employer to understand whether the candidate is going to be successful in the role, and to understand the candidate's judgment and to essentially make a more informed hiring decision, a data-driven hiring decision, rather than just kind of guessing whether they feel that person's going to be more successful or not. So the first question is, what led you to join ABC Company, which is the company where you are currently working at, or previous company. And what they want to understand is your decision-making process. Why did you join that company? Was it for money? Was it for growth? Was it for opportunity? I mean, what was most important to you in your career that you felt joining this company was going to help you? And what the employer is going to do is they're going to look for patterns of why you accepted new positions along the way. Now, if they see that you accepted a new position for money, then they're going to be like, you know what, we don't want this guy because he is a C player. He is not a high performer. So the best reasons to give for why you moved from company to company, why you accepted new job after new job, is to talk about looking for growth, looking for more opportunity, looking for more responsibility. Responses like that are more indicative of a high performer, of an A player, of someone who is likely going to succeed in this new role. And when it gets down to it, what they're really looking for is whether you are able to realize your goals at this new company if they hired you. Because they don't want to hire people who their goals are going to take them in a different direction. They want to hire people who are going to be a natural fit for the company, for the culture, for the role, and who are going to excel in the role. That's really the bottom line. I mean, if they feel that you're not going to be able to realize your goals at this company, then they're going to be wasting their time on you. They're doing you a disservice, and they're doing a disservice to themselves. So it's not fair to either side. So moving on to number 2, what led to your decision to leave ABC Company? Notice how it was framed. Not why did you leave, but what led to your decision to leave. And what they want to understand is your motivations, your judgment. Why did you leave? And this helps them understand your decision making and your judgment for each position. And overall, what they're looking for is an upward trend in responsibility and income. And that's what they're going to map out for your last 3 jobs. If they can see that your decision to leave each job was for more income, more responsibility, more income, responsibility, they can assume that that pattern is going to continue if they hired you too. Now, if your pattern kind of goes down and, maybe your responsibility and your income is going down, then they're going to kind of scratch their head and say, well, if he's on a downward trend and we hired him, he's probably going to continue in a downward trend. So we don't want that. That's how employers are thinking about these questions when they ask them to you. Now, if your pattern shows a history of layoffs and terminations, then the employer is going to be like, well, if we hired him, that pattern is going to continue. We're probably going to fire him or we're probably going to lay him off. And that's how they use predictive questioning to determine whether you are going to be successful if they hired you or not, because there just isn't enough time in the interview process to really get to know you and to understand everything about you. So they ask these key questions that give them a lot of insight into, what your motivations are, what your judgments are, what you're really looking for in a career, and whether they can offer that to you or not. It's as simple as that. And this helps them make a more educated decision about whether you're going to be a long-term fit or not. So moving on to number 3, what were you hired to do? So they want to understand if you were hired to come in and work on a new deal, open a new sales territory, start a project, fix a failed project. They want to understand what you were hired to do and whether you accomplished that or not. And if you didn't accomplish that, why not? Now, if you didn't accomplish what you were hired to do and you start blaming, management or the company or the direction or funding or lack of resources or your team, then you're blaming all the wrong people. You need to blame yourself. You need to accept responsibility. And employers are looking for that. They're looking for people who like to place blame on everyone else. And those are the worst people to hire. Whether, placing the blame is right or not, if you were leading that team, if you were running that project, if you were managing that division and it failed, then you failed and you need to accept responsibility for that. So show that in the interview. Just say, it was my fault. I didn't get it done, and here's what I learned from it, period. And that's the surest sign of a high performer. And I know you're a high performer because you are here and you're watching me today. Otherwise, you wouldn't be. All the C players, they're sitting home. They're eating potato chips on the couch, but not you. So let's move on here to number 4. What was your greatest accomplishment while working at ABC Company? So if your accomplishment lacks grit and fails to leave them with a wow factor, they are going to write you off as a low performer, guaranteed. You want to show them, you want to give them accomplishments that they can sink their teeth into, accomplishments that are not your daily job duties. Because some people like to disguise their daily duties as accomplishments. Well, employers are not stupid. They can understand that you are giving them an accomplishment that really is an accomplishment, it's just part of your job. So think about it. What kind of accomplishment can you give them that's going to show them that, you have grit and passion and that you really went above and beyond your role and delivered exceptional results? Now, you might be saying, well, Don, I don't have anything like that. I know you do. I know you do. You just have to dig deep and you have to find it. And then you have to share it and present it in a way that makes them say, wow, she knows what she's talking about. She knows how to do the job. And when you start giving responses like that, you're going to be giving responses that are predictive of success in the role. And that's what the employer is looking for. Do you have the potential to be great in this role down the road? Maybe not today, but do you have the potential for long-term success? That's what they're looking for. So let's move on to number 5. What impact have you made on the company while working in this role? And what they're looking for is people who kind of move the needle, people who took maybe a poor customer service department and turned it into a great one, people who took a low-performing sales territory and turned it into something spectacular, people who moved the needle and made a difference. That's what they're looking for. And if they're asking the question in that way, what impact have you made? That's your opportunity to talk about, what you really did, how you helped the company do better by doing blank. That's really the key. And when you can start answering questions like that, and I know you can, maybe you're thinking off the top of your head that, I don't know how to do that. Dig deep. Dig deep down inside and search yourself and find something. Now, granted, maybe if you're fresh out of college, maybe you don't have a story like that. But if you're fresh out of college, they're probably not going to be asking you this question either. These are more like experienced questions for people who have been working 5 or 10 years or more. So again, questions are going to be appropriate based on the position. So moving on to number 6, what were you most passionate about in your last role and what did you least enjoy? Now this is a compound question and it's looking for alignment. They're looking for things that you enjoyed doing in your last role because they want to make sure that this new position represents some of those things as well. And they're also looking for what you didn't like. Because if this job that you're interviewing for has a certain amount, maybe 15 or 20% of it are things that you really didn't enjoy doing in your last role or don't enjoy doing, then it's likely that you're not going to continue in that job. And no matter how much you say, I don't mind those things, smart interviewers are going to know that if they don't hire you for a job where 90% of it represents things that you love doing, then it's unlikely you're going to last long in the role. It doesn't mean that you won't be successful in the role. It just means that you won't be enthusiastic about the role. But if you're not enthusiastic, you're not going to be as successful as you could. So generally, you need to be super excited about 90% of this job. And any less than that, employers are just going to be like, you're not going to last long and you're not right for this role. And it's smart because they don't want to put you in a role where you're not going to be happy. Because if you're not happy, you're not going to be enthusiastic. If you're not enthusiastic, you're not going to do a great job. And if you don't do a great job, you're going to lower the morale of everybody else in the company. So it's not fair to the company, it's not fair to the people who work there, and it's not fair to you either. So let's move on here to number 7. What 3 skills are you working on right now to develop? And if you sit there and hum and haw and kind of say, well, maybe this, maybe that, they know right off the bat that you are not a high performer because the high performers, they know 1, 2, 3 exactly what they're doing to better themselves and go to the next level. So if you get that exact question, know that you are dealing with a very sharp interviewer because there's few that know how to ask this question, but it's so revealing and it almost instantly reveals whether the employer is interviewing or dealing with an A player or a high performer, and it instantly lets them know if they're not. So moving on to number 8, what about this position is exciting to you? And what they want to hear is how passionate you are about the role, about the company, about the team that you'd be working on. They want to know deep down inside what you really love about this and why you love it. Not just that, I think this would be great. Deeper. Really pull yourself into it and let them feel why you're excited, why you're passionate, why you are enthusiastic. And give them those specific details, and that's going to help them understand that, you really understand us. You are really excited about the kinds of things that we are doing. We can see that, we can feel that, we can hear that in your voice. And what that's doing is giving them the feeling that you are going to be successful in this role, not in the short term, but in the long term. You are going to be the kind of person that comes in and is not afraid of doing any kind of jobs. It works well with everybody and is going to be there in the long term and take the company through all of its levels of growth. Moving on to number 9, what did you do while you were in between jobs? Now, they're only going to ask you this if you were unemployed. So if you have a 1 month, 3 month, 6 month unemployment gap on your resume, then they're going to say, hey, what did you do while you were unemployed? And if you just say, well, I look for jobs. That's the worst thing you can say. You can say, yeah, I did look for jobs, but you want to also show them that you were bettering yourself, you were growing, you were educating yourself. I mean, maybe you were reading some books, maybe you were taking some online classes. Talk about something that you did to better yourself. Even volunteer work. I mean, maybe you couldn't get a job, so you went and volunteered somewhere. Like if you're an accountant and you're out of work and you volunteered at the local school to be an accountant to help them do their books while you're unemployed. Something other than I looked for jobs for 40 or 50 hours a week, because nobody looks for jobs 40 to 50 hours a week. That's a job in itself, and that's just too darn boring. Nobody does that. So they ask you, what did you do while you were in between jobs? Give them something that shows, that you're growth-minded, that you are bettering yourself, you're pushing yourself in the next direction, in an upward direction. So last one, number 10, what question haven't I asked you that you wish I would have asked you? Now, this is more like a closing question, but what it does is it gives you an opportunity to tell the employer or the interviewer something more about you, something that will help them understand, what you're really excited about. Why are you really here? What are you really curious about this job? It gives them the opportunity, it gives you the opportunity to share something deeper about yourself, to make a connection. And it essentially allows you to share something about yourself that you really want the employer to know, that you think is going to help their decision-making process. And it shows them where your mind is. It shows them what you're thinking. You might have some really special skills that just didn't come up in the interview process. And then you could say, well, I wish you would have asked me about, such and such. And then they might say, well, okay, why don't you tell me about that? And then you can go on. But it just gives you that. It's kind of like a lifeline question in a way. It's just a way for you to further express something about you that is connected to them or the position or what they're doing or their vision, their mission, something like that. So that is all that I have for you. I hope you enjoyed these top 10 success predicting questions. And what I've done for you is I put these in a special PDF file that you can download, and you can get that from jobinterviewtools.com/success. Just head on over there and you can download this free guide and just put in your name and email address. Tell me where to send it to, and I'll get it right out to you. And this will allow you to prepare at a much higher level for your next interview. Now, I don't tell you exactly, what to say, because that's up to you. But I'm telling you what the interviewer is looking for in your responses, at least the smart interviewers. But because a lot of those interviewers out there, they don't know what they're looking for. They're just asking questions, and they're just kind of hoping and praying that you're going to impress them. But I want you to unequivocally impress them beyond belief by telling them exactly who you are, what makes you tick, what you're passionate about, and how that's aligned with what they're doing. All right, my friend, that's all I have for you today. Good luck on your next interview. I'll see you in the next video. Bye now.